So you're pretty good at English. You've been learning for a while. When you talk to your teachers and other English learners, you don't have any problems. But as soon as you try and talk to British people, you don't understand anything. It's annoying, but why does it happen? And what can you do about it? Well, let's talk about it. Hey up, mate, and cheers for finding this video today. I appreciate that. If you're new around here, my name is Dan. I'm a British English teacher, and I'm here to help you feel more confident about communicating in English. Now, today's video is all about a really common problem that loads of people have, and that is that they struggle to understand native speakers. So today, we're going to talk all about why this happens. I'm also going to tell you why it's not exactly your fault, mate. Don't beat yourself up. And we're going to talk about what you can do to help you improve your understanding of native speakers when you're in conversations with them. So let's dive in. I often get messages from people, Instagram, email, so on and so forth. And these messages often go something like this. I ask them, what's the biggest problem you have with your English? And they tell me that when they talk to their teachers and other learners, they understand everything. But when they talk to British people, they don't understand anything. And it's quite a common thing, but why does it happen? There's a few reasons for it. The first is that the English you learn in your textbooks and apps and in lessons and with your teachers and things like that is English, but it's a different kind of English to what you'll hear in real life. Native speakers, especially in the UK, we don't sound like the people in your textbooks. We don't use those words. We don't speak in that way. We use different accents and dialects and slang words and expressions, and we do all of that stuff which your teachers don't really tell you much about. You know, you spend too long learning about second conditional and not enough time learning about how John from Birmingham might tell you he's feeling cold, you know? So one reason is that there's a massive difference between how English is presented in educational situations and how English actually works in the real world. Proper different. And if you're not aware of that difference, it's going to lead to you not understanding what's going on. Of course it is. Native speakers, we also speak really quickly and we skip words and we don't follow the rules that you've been told. Now, probably when you're learning from a teacher, they speak really slowly and clearly and make sure they pronounce each word correctly and clearly so it's easy for you to understand. However, when you talk to somebody in real life and they don't do any of them things and they speak really quickly and they start to push words together, it all sounds like one big sound, you get a bit confused, right? So that were a pretty good example, I think. Now, this is also things that people complain about. Oh, native speakers speak too quickly. They don't pronounce all the words. They skip words. I don't understand. Well, yeah, if you don't understand, that's going to be difficult to understand, isn't it? It's going to be hard work. Now, another reason is that the UK has got a lot of accents. Now, I've talked about this in other episodes, but I'll mention it again. In the UK, there are like a minimum of 50 different accents, to be honest. Minimum. There's probably more if you get into it. But each region has got its own specific accent where we make the sounds differently, we pronounce the words differently, we've got different pronunciation techniques that we use. So a lot of people, when they think of British English, they think of an accent called RP. RP is like that BBC, Queen's English, where everybody will elocute the words correctly, and they will ask questions in a slow manner. Yeah, that doesn't really work in UK. Like, I would imagine less than 5%, probably even less than 3% of the UK actually speak in that accent in daily life. So if you're expecting everybody to sound like that, and then suddenly you end up, I don't know, in Middlesbrough or, I don't know, Glasgow, you're going to be surprised, mate, because nobody is going to sound like that. So all of these things can make it pretty difficult to understand native speakers, right? So that's one of the things that happens. And, it's not necessarily your fault that these things happened. Like, it's not your fault that your textbooks and your teachers haven't prepared you for that. It's not your fault that native speakers are doing things that they tell you not to do. And it's not your fault that you haven't heard every single accent in the UK, right? Like, this is one of those things that it's tough, but it's something that you need to work on. And the reason you need to work on it is because it causes quite a few problems with communication if you're not careful. Like, you can end up like this guy with whirly eyes and is a bit confused. And like, if you try and speak to native speakers, you talk to British people in the UK, and, they're using their accent, they're using all these weird slang words and expressions, and they're talking really quickly, and you can't follow what's going on, your confidence is going to just take a dive, innit? Your confidence is going to fall. And when your confidence falls, you're going to feel like, I can't do this. I'm not good enough. My English is not good enough to talk to native speakers. I must be doing something wrong, right? And the problem then comes from most people, when something's difficult, like talking to a native speaker, they don't want to do it. So they don't want to talk to native speakers because it makes them feel bad about their English. It makes them feel like their English is not good enough. So they probably don't do it as much as they could, or as much as they probably should. Talking to native speakers and talking to other people that you meet when you go to the UK is a fun thing to do. It's cool. It's great. But if you feel bad about it, you're probably going to avoid it. And that's not cool. That's no bueno, which I think is Spanish for not good. I don't know. I don't speak Spanish. But anyway, so if you struggle to speak to people around you, you're going to feel confused, and confused is going to hurt your confidence, and then you're not going to do it, and it's a vicious cycle, The next thing is that when people are talking to you and it's just like too much, you can't follow what they're saying, you've got two options. Either you tell them, like, sorry, mate, I don't understand them words that you're saying, and I don't understand your accent, so can you try again? But 99.999% of people who are learning English don't do that. Do you know what they do? Their eyes are wide. They're just nodding, hoping for the best, like, yeah, okay, I understand. The truth is, they don't understand. So they just kind of smile and nod and play along, praying, just absolutely praying that you don't ask a question. Please don't ask me a question about this thing, because I'm just pretending to understand, and I don't understand. But the problem is, maybe you'll miss something really important in that conversation. You're panicking, like, I don't understand anything. And they tell you, that there's going to be a meeting tomorrow at 10 o'clock, but you don't catch that and you don't ask about it. And then you don't go to the meeting and your boss is pissed off, like, why ain't Dan at this meeting? Because I didn't understand there were a meeting. I was just nodding and smiling, that's why. So, it can mean that you missed something important, which is something we don't want to do, right? Now, all this stuff, it's going to hurt your confidence eventually. Your confidence is going to drop. And like I said, if your confidence drops, you're going to try and avoid being in a situation that hurts your confidence. You're going to go back to your comfort zone. And for most people, their comfort zone is back to the textbooks, filling in the gaps, back to the Duolingo apps, doing their streak or whatever it is, learning like sentences that are right useful, like nos falamos como gatos or something. You can tell I've been using Duolingo for Portuguese. It's not very good. It's better than nothing, but it is what it is. But anyway, so you're more likely to go back to doing things that you feel comfortable with, and the kind of things that don't really fix the problem. Like, learning more English is not going to help you feel confident when you're talking to native speakers if you can't understand native speakers. Don't matter how much more vocabulary you learn. It's not going to change the problem, is it? So, and if you end up avoiding conversations, because it makes you feel bad, that's going to cause a lot of problems in your life, because it's going to end up doing things like stopping you from making connections with people you meet. So it's going to be hard to make new relationships and friendships. It's going to isolate you from other people because you're going to feel like you're not part of the team because you can't connect with them, right? And it could also end up hurting your career because you could end up making mistakes at work because you don't understand what people are saying to you, right? And this is all going to lead to feeling very lonely. Sorry, I've got hiccups. Feeling very lonely, feeling like you're not part of the group. You're not part of your community. You can't make friends. And if you move to the UK or you're living in an English-speaking country and you feel lonely and isolated like that, life's going to be pretty hard. and you're probably going to want to go home, and we don't want that. And that's why what seems like a minor problem, native speakers speak too quickly for me, but I understand my teacher, so it's all right. British people use slang, but I don't really care about slang, so it's all right. The problem is it causes these other effects in your life that can have a massive effect on your life. And that's one of the reasons we need to fix these problems. But that leads us to the question is, how can you fix these problems? Well, there's three kind of main things that I would suggest you start doing. And the first is start practicing listening to real accents. I don't mean teachers. Just because I'm from Yorkshire and I've got a Yorkshire accent, it's a bit of a trap because I'm also a teacher and I also understand how to change my accent and how to change my voice and slow down for people that need me to understand. So it's not genuine as much as I want it to be, as much as I try and speak as naturally as I can. There's something in my brain at the back that tells me to slow down because I'm talking to non-natives. I can't help it. So that's why you need to go out of your way and find native speakers who speak like they're talking to other native speakers, right? Now, really good ways to do this is things like podcasts. There's hundreds of podcasts. Find a podcast about something you're interested in, then find a British podcast about it and listen to it. Not a podcast from a teacher. Like I said, try and find a podcast from a regular Joe who just happens to be from Birmingham and he enjoys talking about whatever topic it is. Something like that. TV shows. We did a whole episode about British TV shows that you can use. And part of that episode, we're talking about different TV shows that have got regional accents. Check out one of them. You could also do YouTube. Find a YouTuber that's in that area that you learn. Like, for example, let's say you're going to live in Liverpool. Find a YouTuber from Liverpool and watch their stuff. That'll be a pretty good way to do it. Also, you can find local radio like BBC Radio Sheffield, for example. Listen to that. You'll get a good mix of local accents where you're going to be. But basically, you've got to spend time listening to genuine native speaker accents. And it's like anything. At first, it's going to be completely overwhelming and you're not going to understand anything. But the more you do it, the more you'll get used to it. Your ears will get accustomed to hearing those sounds and the way that they say those words, and your brain will get comfortable catching it. And that's the thing. So that's what I would suggest. And then that way, you're going to be able to communicate with more people in the UK. You're going to be able to communicate with people in different areas if you travel around the UK, for example. If, for example, let's say you travel to Devon or Cornwall, you can spend time listening to their accents. You'll be able to understand people when you get there and communicate, which is nice, isn't it? So yeah, it opens up a lot of doors. So get used to real British accents. And I don't mean try and use a British accent. You don't need to change your accent. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is try and understand other people's accents because, that's part of it, innit? If you can't understand somebody else, how are you supposed to communicate with them? Well, you can't, can you? Another thing that you should probably do is learn about connected speech. So English is a stress-timed language, which means we've got a bunch of techniques that involve rhythm and timing and chunking and linking sounds together. And this can be learned relatively easy. There's a million videos on YouTube that show you how to do it. There's a really good video from Pronunciation with Emma, who's another Yorkshire teacher. She's a fantastic teacher. She's got a really good video about like stress in English. So if you want to check it out, you can do. But there's hundreds out there. Do a bit of research. Find out what is going on. Why do we link certain words together? How do we link certain words together? Why does it become, do you want to eat? Rather than, would you like something to eat? Why does that happen? Because it does happen. Whether you want to do it or not, it still happens. So you kind of need to understand what's happening. It's like this. Have you ever had this situation where you're watching TV, you're watching a British TV show, and the subtitles are on, and you can see the words written out, and you can catch it, it makes sense. But then the second you turn the subtitles off, those individual words disappear and we end up with one really big long sound that you can't catch anymore. That's what's happening. The linking, the chunking, the intonation, the way the stress works is making it so you're not quite catching individual words because we don't say individual words in English. We don't pronounce every word individually. we put them all together in one big sound, right? So you've got to spend time looking at that stuff as well. And last but not least, you've got to spend some time learning British expressions. Now, this is a bit of a touchy subject, to be honest with you. But I strongly recommend, me personally, I strongly recommend you should learn British slang expressions, because British people use a lot of weird and wonderful expressions, right? And if you're not prepared for that, when these expressions come up in conversation, you're going to have no idea. A lot of these expressions, there's no way to guess what they mean based on the words. So you're just going to be absolutely confused and you're not going to know what to do. And if that happens, you're going to end up feeling lost in conversation. So make sure that you learn the most common British expressions, especially if you move to an area that's got a lot of dialect words. Learn the words relative to where you're going to be living. And I don't mean go and learn a list of 5,000 British slang expressions. Don't do that. That's not going to work. We'll talk a bit more later about how to actually do that. But what I would say is learn them in context. Learn the most common ones as they come up. Don't just go out of your way to learn everything. Pick up as you go along. And you've got to make sure that you practice. And I don't mean practice using them, practice recognizing them. If they're showing up in TV shows or podcasts or YouTube videos that you listen to, they're probably good ones to start with. If there's listening exercises that have got them in, that's a good place to start. You've got to recognize them before you can use them, and I think that's pretty important. And yeah, that's basically why I think that British expressions are important. So if you did all of those three things, you practice listening to real accents, so you're not confused by how people are saying things to you. You learn about connected speech and rhythm so you can start to keep up with the fast pace from native speakers. And you learn some expressions that are relative to the people you're going to be talking to. That takes a lot of pressure off you, and it makes it a lot easier for you to then go ahead and, communicate with people. And that leads to the fact that you'll then be able to build connections with people. You'll feel less lonely. Maybe you can improve your career and all that good stuff. So it's an important thing to do. And if you need a bit of help getting this kind of thing up and running, I'd strongly recommend checking out my British expressions guide. It's called British English Made Easy. It's got 50 essential British expressions in it. It's totally free. The link is in the description. So check it out now and get started learning some of the more common British slang words. And now it's over to you. What is the biggest problem when it comes to understanding native speakers? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear all about it. And if you're also struggling to communicate your ideas in conversations because you freeze up and forget everything, I suggest you watch this video next.